What's going on, you guys? This is your boy RBG bringing you another video on Marvel Spider-Man 2. I'm not even sure if I should say that because this pertains to Marvel Spider-Man at large, because if you guys aren't aware, something leaked online and it actually corroborates what we theorized all those years back when we were still speculating on what we could see in Marvel Spider-Man 2. But before we dive into the topic at hand, I want to ask that you guys do me the biggest favor and like this video. Yeah, I know it's annoying getting this request at the very beginning when you haven't watched the video in its entirety, but YouTube's algorithm encourages it. So if you rock with your boy and you know I'm going to bring you that awesome content, then smash that like button. And if by any chance you feel like you made it to the end of the video and you felt like you wasted 10 minutes of your time, then by all means retract that like and give it a dislike. Just rate the video. But yeah, guys, we just got some major news in the form of leaks, and I am just sick to my stomach right now because we could have experienced something that would have been a game changer for the Marvel Spider-Man franchise. It also would have proved to be controversial because this is a genre that has slowly been taking over the gaming industry as a whole, and that is live service multiplayer. This has been a big taboo in the world of video games because fans feel like this takes away the potential that a game has to offer, not to mention that it compromises the integrity of a reputable game development company. We've seen so many great studios such as Crystal Dynamics be reduced to nothing more than a joke after the abysmal reception they got from producing Marvel's Avengers. And we witnessed Rocksteady butcher their established Arkhamverse canon with Suicide Squad kill the Justice League, so it's understandable why people just want this genre to go away. Too many games, particularly in the superhero genre, have been ruined all for the sake of making money, and apparently Marvel Spider-Man could have been in the same boat. Because this morning we got another bombshell dropped on us in the form of a leak for a game called Marvel Spider-Man The Great Web. And I just gotta say that although this is great that we actually see what they were cooking up, it's somewhat sad that Insomniac continues to suffer from all these leaks pertaining to projects they have coming down the pipeline. And I'm just gonna say this now, due to the trailer being leaked, I'm not gonna be showing any of the footage from it, but I am gonna be breaking down what I saw. You guys may remember that I didn't really go into detail on what I saw in the Wolverine trailer, and that's because that's a game that's still active in development. But given the fact that this game has been cancelled, I feel like it's free real estate to just talk about it and all the endless possibilities we could have seen in it. But yes, this undoubtedly looked to be a games as a service adaptation of Marvel Spider-Man, and from what I've seen, it looks like it could have been very promising. If you guys remember, a couple years ago I talked about us potentially getting an online multiplayer for Spider-Man based on some data mining somebody had done for the PC build of Marvel Spider-Man 1. As unfavorable as it seems, there have been a group of fans that have been protesting for this feature because they see all the different possibilities the game could boast, especially since we were dealing with 2 Spider-Men and 3 if you included Harry Osborn. There were just so many different things that we were imagining that we could do in this big open world sandbox of New York City. And let me just say, man, I remember getting a lot of pushback for even coming up with the video and saying that there is a possibility that this game could be in the making. A lot of you said I was speaking nonsense for even suggesting this idea because for the most part, Insomniac Games has been cooking up some solid solo story mode experiences for us. Not to mention that Sony PlayStation had already addressed this rumor and flat out said that it wasn't true. So many of you were questioning why I would even talk about those rumors when they had already been shot down by the officials, which is totally understandable. We already know that going by word of mouth, especially on the internet, isn't always going to deliver you the truth. But I felt like people glossed over the fact that I said that this was all just that, just a rumor, but I think it was a big possibility that we could potentially see something like that. And as it turns out, yeah, I was right on the money. There was a possibility that Sony could have been working on a live service Spider-Man game with Insomniac at the helm. Yeah, guys, that whole Be Greater Together hashtag looked like it meant something even bigger than just a single player experience. We were actually going to be able to team up with different Spider-Men across the Spider-Verse. And it looks like the gameplay was going to be built on the bones of the previous Marvel Spider-Man installments, particularly Marvel Spider-Man 2, because that game puts a heavy emphasis on team-up attacks, and if you look at the footage in this right here, it looks exactly like that except more tailored to co-op, because you get this awesome scene of Miles and Gwen performing this team attack on a thug. Like, I also know that this feature was featured in the DLC for Marvel Spider-Man 1, particularly with the Black Cat, but it just felt more refined in Marvel Spider-Man 2. Like, it looks like they were going to use a lot of of elements from the previous installments. Given the fact that each Spider-Man game comes with roughly around 70 alternate suits, you can imagine that it wouldn't be that hard for the players to just select one of those suits in the form of their own version of Spider-Man. For example, you see the Scarlet Spider, Spider-Man 2099, and even the black symbiote suit from the Spider-Man 2 game. And there's a slight variant of Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales' suit, except this time he's wearing Chucks, which leads me to believe that this game would have undoubtedly put a heavy emphasis on character customization to make you stand out from other players. It also confirms my suspicion that this was in fact connected to or a spin-off to Marvel Spider-Man 2, because not only do they feature the black symbiote suit for Peter Parker in the game from Marvel Spider-Man 2, it also features a very similar character model of Venom in there. There's also the chance that this all could have been alluded to in Marvel Spider-Man 2, because if you guys remember, you had to collect all the different spider bots, which bear an uncanny resemblance to Spider-Man outside of Peter and Miles' universe. Once you obtain them all, you get sent a message that leads you to an address that looks like a random alleyway, only to see a massive portal appear. It's from there that we meet Delilah, which is essentially a character that was supposed to be in Across the Spider-Verse, but she was deleted for whatever reason. She's supposed to be this bartender at a bar for extra-dimensional supervillains in the Spider-Verse, but her scenes were cut at the last minute. She doesn't really enlighten you on what's going on, but she ends up taking the spider bots and she name drops Miguel O'Hara before closing the portal for good. And this is officially the first time that the Spider-Verse is acknowledged canonically within the Earth 1048 universe, because if you guys aren't aware, this version of Spider-Man, although he's been featured in different multiversal events, the actual games don't acknowledge any of them. We've seen him in the Spider-Verse movies, and he's also been featured in a Spider-Verse comic called Spider-Geddon, but none of those things were ever taken into account until now. Marvel Spider-Man 2 actually establishes that a multiverse exists out there. As to what they could be setting up is anyone's guess, but I firmly believe that this could have possibly segued into this unreleased title that we were gonna get. And apparently Scarlet Witch would have kicked off the whole thing. Forbes says, and I quote, "The concept here is that Scarlet Witch opens up the multiverse and out come pouring threats, including the grand villain group, the Sinister Six. Now Spider-Man from all worlds have to band together to fight it, and you have probably heard some of this before in the form of the Into the Spider-Verse animated movies. This isn't that stylized, it's very much still Insomniac Spider-Man, including Peter voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, but it's something many players are now mourning they'll never play." So as you guys hear, it sounds like this game is going to revolve heavily around the art of magic and mysticism, which is something that we got introduced in Marvel Spider-Man 2 with Felicia Hardy. If you guys remember, she was haunted by Kraven the Hunter, and they followed her to the Sanctum Sanctorum, where she stole the wand of Watum, and she was able to create these portals to send her to different parts of the world. If you guys are familiar with Insomniac Games video gameography, then you know this was a element that they utilized heavily in the latest Ratchet & Clank game, and it's since served as other gameplay elements for games such as Spider-Man 2, and it would have undoubtedly served the same purpose in Marvel Spider-Man The Great Web. It just seems like Insomniac planted a lot of seeds, and they were ready to water those seeds in the form of this new game that was ultimately cancelled. And as the article says, there are a lot of fans that are mourning the death of this game that will never see the light of day on store shelves because they saw the potential, like I mentioned earlier. You got some fans that are under the impression that Sony secretly leaked this trailer just to see what our post would be once we witnessed it. I'm not sure what I should believe, but it looked like this game was further along in development than I thought. Insomniac Games obviously had a good idea of where they wanted to go, but unfortunately Sony, for whatever reason, decided to cancel it. Now, if I were to make an educated guess as to why Sony ultimately came to this decision, I would say that it's due to the hostile nature that these games warrant. As I mentioned earlier, there's always going to be pushback from an audience that doesn't want that live service model implemented into their games, especially an established property such as Marvel Spider-Man, where Insomniac has built from the ground up and the integrity for the most part has remained intact. There's probably also the fear of disappointment they can get from the fans, because if you guys aren't aware, Sony and PlayStation, they've always had this conservative attitude when it comes to producing single-player story-driven experiences. They are in the business of selling consoles, and they do that by producing these awesome first-party single-player games. But over time, we've seen their philosophies change, especially when it comes to exclusivity. If you guys haven't noticed, they've begun to migrate some of their titles over to the PC, such as Marvel Spider-Man 1 and The Last of Us, something that we never thought we would see them do. And if you guys were to ask me why they're doing things like this and tapping more into their games as a service model, I'd say that it's due largely in part to how hard it is to produce games nowadays. The more we advance with video games, the more money you're gonna have to spend to produce those, and Sony isn't really seeing these big returns like they used to in the yesteryear. For example, right, Marvel Spider-Man 2's budget was apparently $315 million to produce, and as of me making this video, it's only been able to make back $75 million of those dollars. So yeah, it's not like the yesteryear where games were being produced and the publishers were guaranteed to make a profit from them. Everything is becoming more and more expensive, and it's gotten to the point that these games are boasting budgets that are bigger than movie blockbusters. So I can kind of understand why a lot of companies are trying to make a pivot and go into that games as a service business model, because that's a lot of money they could potentially make. But they're doing it at the expense of these studios' reputation. A lot of these studios are mainly known for their single player story driven experiences, and to have them be reduced to a online multiplayer game would be a cardinal sin. Not only do they have to build a solid foundation from the ground up and make sure that it's fun to play, they also have to dedicate all their time to producing more content, because it's all about that in-game business model as well. Another thing is the functionality and overall performance of it. You know, the one thing that I noticed about this game is that the visuals seem to have been downgraded compared to that of Marvel Spider-Man 1 and Marvel Spider-Man 2, and I honestly think that's largely due in part to the online aspect of it all. The game needs to run smoothly, and there are always going to be those compromises, such as how good the game is going to look, and you can tell by some character models, particularly with Venom, that he does not look as good as he did in Marvel Spider-Man 2. There's also the underlying question of how the game will perform in terms of web swinging, because if you're going to have multiple Spider-Men swinging around the same area, how is that going to affect the overall speed and performance of this title? So I understand from both sides of the spectrum. On one hand, you have Sony that's still trying to figure out what they need to do in order to make a profit in this generation of consoles, and you also have the fans that just don't want to see their favorite development studios be reduced to that. But anyways guys, that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video because I had a blast making it, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you feel like Marvel Spider-Man The Great Web would have been a fun and phenomenal experience, or do you feel like it would have been yet another live service game that was dead on arrival? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, I ask that you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on all the different social media outlets. Sharing really makes a difference. But once again, this is your boy RBG, aka The Random Black Gamer, signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.